Hello and welcome to China Focus. I'm Shelley Zhang. Is China losing its status as the world's factory? Well, foreign direct investment fell in China for the first time in years last year, and between rising wages and better opportunities in places like Thailand, Vietnam, and strangely, the U.S., a lot of companies are rethinking their China model. What will this mean for China and the United States? Here today to talk about this, we have Chen Zhifei and Jason Ma. So, foreign direct investment fell last year in China. Is this significant?
It's ostensibly, if you look at the surface, the numbers are not that mind-boggling. It's just 3.7%. But remember, that really a breaking point of the consecutive increases in the periods in the years ahead of it. So that's really what is causing so much concern within China. And also, if you compare China's foreign direct investment number with the surrounding countries, basically its competitors, the foreign direct investment has gone up by more than 60% in Thailand, more than 40% in Indonesia, and and also if you look at the closest neighbor, Vietnam, Japanese investment has doubled last year. However, due to many reasons, including political ones, it has dipped in China.
So it seems like a lot of foreign countries are seeing a lot in these surrounding Southeast Asian countries. Now, let me kind of go back to, a few years ago, this is what it was like in China, right? Like pouring money into the Chinese economy. What was it that made it so kind of attractive to go to China in the first place?
Yeah, several reasons. First, definitely cheap labor. I mean, Chinese worker work hard and cheap, and well-educated, relatively. And second is policy. Like Chinese government give a special kind of policy, like tax incentive to the foreign investment. And then third thing is about like overall at that moment, Chinese kind of dollar, Chinese renminbi was kind of unpersonally kind of depreciated, and also keep like that. Chinese government was able to keep Chinese dollar, Chinese yuan very low, and finally, energy was still kind of cheap, so shipment, everything is kind of widely available and cheap. So all these factors put together, that's kind of by calculation, there is no point to make things in US, so they dump everything to China.
I just want to add one point onto what Jason just mentioned. I think there are also a technological fitness for that kind of mode of operation, because with the advent of internet, a lot of things have become computerized. You can do the design and R&D in America, and then subcontract and outsources to China and other countries for manufacturing. So you can have this kind of disconnect between design and manufacturing. Basically, everybody here is white collar, basically doing design work, and in China, you subcontract all the sweaty jobs there.
I mean, these factory towns in China where you have like entire cities making products, or, a factory can have like 40,000 people, 400,000 people, living there or something, just doing manufacturing, or you have like, the city that all they make is shoes. Or
right. I mean, basically China quickly, especially after 2002, after they were admitted to this WTO, and their export, along with their manufacture, is exploding. I mean, I think probably like China produced like 80% of shoes in the world, 80% of toy, and 80% of kind of. Basically, China is producing everything for everyone. I mean, it's kind of it's get to that kind of point, but. Right now, everything is changing. I mean, as you said.
What are the things that are changing?
I mean, first of all, China's population gradually to the point where they don't have unlimited kind of cheap labor. For first 15 years, the salary for Chinese labor in South China, they have zero increase. But for the past several years, because of the cheap labor reduced, and they have this constant problem. They can't find enough laborers, cheap laborers, so they have to increase the salary. So basically, and also Chinese inflation force people to take more salary just to feed themselves, have a place to live. So although they still live in the kind of like 5 people share the one room and eat the minimum kind of food, but still, because of inflation, everything pushed the salary up. Like some factory have to double their salary in 2 or 3 years. And another is kind of a Chinese kind of renminbi under like international pressure, they can appreciate a lot, like 20% in the past 5-6 years. And also, Chinese gave up the tax incentive to the foreign investment. Right now, they can tax the foreign investment, a lot of foreign investment in major category, like the lower end, the same way as Chinese kind of company. So all these things kind of and
there is a pecking order if you look at the distribution of the money earned from these new products like iPhone and iPad. At the bottom is country like China, which is doing most of the heavy lifting, doing the manufacturing from A to Z, but they're only getting less than 10% whole value of the production. For those white-collar workers based in America, they didn't do any production at all. However, they got more than 50% of the whole value. So Chinese government has realized that they were really not getting all the benefits they deserve, so they are backing away, believe it or not, from this operational mode that has made China the world's workshop.
So you're saying if I pay $200 for an iPhone, only $20 of that is made in China?
They call that a smiley face kind of shape. Basically, the kind of a design brand make most of money, and also the sales, the service makes most of money. Manufacturer is the bottom and makes the
That explains what Jason just mentioned, why government has unilaterally backed down from giving unlimited tax incentives and other benefits.
So they're not saying it's not worth it anymore.
They're not worth it anymore. They want people to move up into the ladder to get into more sophisticated, more value-added industries. However, that would put China in a bind because when we look at those hordes of migrant labor or whatever, they're well-educated. They are well-tuned to this operational mode because Chinese educational system is highly regimented and disciplined. So that really plays into their experience. But if you want to move up the ladder, you have to be creative in thinking and original in your thoughts, which was what Chinese education system has been lacking for. So I don't know what will evolve, from this point onward, but I think things will not become pretty as some people in China would think.
So in the Wall Street Journal last week, there was an article about, is China losing out as the world's factory? And a lot of the things that they were talking about were kind of these low-end manufacturing, things like shoes, things like clothing, things that are moving to other Southeast Asian countries, like the ones that you mentioned, Zhifei, that have a lot of, more foreign direct investment now. So if China is willing to let that go, they don't really want to have that any kind of manufacturing anymore. Where can they go? Are they pushing towards the higher manufacturing?
I guess kind of right now, definitely they think the model of Foxconn is kind of better because that's more like a little bit high-end manufacturer. They hope that can really kind of gain more kind of ground. But the problem is right now there are kind of 300 million immigrant workers. And I don't think Foxconn is going to keep expanding like that. And also we know, even like Apple, they begin to move some manufacturer, like the Apple kind of iMac Pro product line back to US. Yeah. So the kind of China was really kind of at a moment where they don't want the low end. So when low end move out, but meanwhile, they are
not ready for the higher
end. For the high end, they kind of because of all these kind of Chinese currency exchange kind of rate, and because of the raising kind of the labor cost, all these kind of things also makes the high end product move out of China. So China is losing at the two ends at this moment. Even kind of Foxconn, they begin to build factories in Brazil. I mean, yeah. So I guess China is kind of suddenly found themselves in a kind of a position where, although they are still the biggest manufacturer in the world, I mean, like a lower, probably second to US, but kind of in the amount of products, they are probably biggest in the world. But they are at the turning point. They begin to see the downtrend in the near future, right?
So you were talking about kind of Apple moving their Mac Pros back to the U.S. Or is this something we're seeing more of in tech companies, U.S. tech companies, things like that?
I don't think it's just an exception. I think it's more than a kind of a rule thing that is going on very commonly these days. We're looking at General Electric and other companies that are engaged in a kind of insourcing behavior that is moving their manufacturing facility and a base from overseas back home, especially from China. Because I mentioned in the previous comment that there are also a technological cycle stuff that's driving all this development. In the past, you can separate out the computer design and the manufacturing, but now with the ever-increased competition level, you have to customize the product very closely to market demand, and then such disconnect will not make it work.
So you can't afford to wait 6 months?
No.
Right, and indeed in China, they're always saying like we will have this kind of knowledge-driven industry in the future. We will kind of compete not really with another toy shop. We will compete with Apple, but unfortunately in China they don't have the legal system to protect the IP. I mean, so right now in China, people only make money by copying. I mean, if you do your own R&D, and you are losing money because once you get it out and people just quickly copy it, and there is no kind of the culture and the law legal system, everything is not there yet to protect these IPs.
But you're assuming China can produce in-house IP, internal or intellectual property, but my bigger concern is actually Chinese system is not ready for producing talents that would create any kind of intellectual property.
Well, what kind of time frame are we looking at here? Because like you're talking about, they're losing out on some advantages, like the production, like the wage increase, like the currency kind of like going up. But like they still have like the manufacturing base there, right? Like they still have the infrastructure. So,
but you know, China from 2002 to 12, in 10 years, they became from an outside player from WTO to the biggest manufacturer in the world, produce anything for anyone in the world, 10 years. And so at that moment, nobody can stop that trend. Everyone is losing jobs. The US is losing jobs. Taiwan is also losing jobs. Even Africa cannot produce anything because of China is cheaper. But once you got to the peak, once you begin to turn, the downtrend can also be very fast. Probably we also talking about 10 years. I mean, another 10 years, China probably will lose a lot.
I think 10 years would be a reasonable estimate if you use U.S. as a guidance from history. The U.S. manufacturing sector peaked in terms of number of employees in 1979. And then it trended down until a couple years ago, and that's we're talking about 30 years.
Right.
But in China, I think they have enjoyed 20 years of labor-driven sort of economic prosperity. I think the game will probably end in 10 years.
I'm sure we'll be talking more about this in future episodes, but we're out of time for today. So thank you for joining us and talking about this. And thank you for watching. For more on this and other issues in China, join us at ntd.tv.